I'm Heather Clancy. I am a senior writer with GreenBiz, and one thing that Joel didn't know when he asked me to do this presentation is that electronic waste is what got me writing for GreenBiz and writing about green technology and technology's role in sustainability. And I'm so privileged and proud to have Mark here today. Mark Bowles, he is the founder of a company called EcoATM. And he's got, this is your sixth startup, I think?
Sixth venture-backed startup.
I've
had others that didn't get money.
He's been involved with the technology industry for a long time, and he has 7 patents in kiosk technology, which I didn't know until I read your, I've actually interviewed you several times, and I didn't key in on that. But what I wanted to do first is, what is an EcoATM? I know it's in the demo pavilion. We got a photo here. I actually convinced them to let me put some slides up. Explain to me what we're seeing here. What is an EcoATM?
It's pretty simple, really. If you've seen a Coinstar machine or a Redbox machine, it's a kiosk, self-serve retail kiosk that buys back your old used electronics for cash on the spot. The whole process takes 3 or 4 minutes from beginning to end. It uses artificial intelligence, machine vision, high-definition cameras, and some electronic inspection to evaluate your phone or tablet or MP3 player very precisely. And on a worldwide market, we're actually hooked into an auction that's a global auction, and we find the best price we can. We present that. If you take that price, we then ask you for some personal information, driver's license. We actually get your thumbprint. And we're actually remotely viewing all of these transactions. We want to lower the threshold for honest people, and but not lower the threshold for bad guys. And so we put a lot of steps in place.
But you're actually giving cash from taking what?
And we pay cash out on the spot.
And what types of gadgets are you collecting?
You know, at the moment, we have a roadmap that goes beyond this, hopefully, but currently we're trying to get really, really good at what we do now, which is mobile phones, tablets, and MP3 players.
So small things. Wait, this thing, give me a sense of how big it is. This is a tiny picture, but what size are we talking about?
It's about 4.5, 5 feet tall, so like a refrigerator, only shorter.
And when we were talking, there's actually one in the mall near where I live. I live near the big, huge Garden State Plaza Mall in New Jersey. Mall City, right, near state of New Jersey. This is taking in how many, give us some stats here. I think you've...
So we just announced a month or so ago, we passed our 2 millionth device. That's from about 1 million customers. We get about 2 devices per customer. We have almost 1,000, not quite 1,000.
Wait, back up. So people come with 2 at a time and put them in? And
2.1. Well, nobody comes with 2.1, but on average.
The broken parts, yeah. Right.
Well, sometimes they do, actually. There's close to 1,000 in 45 states. We're not quite at 1,000 yet. The average time, at least for phones, is about 18 months. We use them, and the life of that phone can actually be much longer than that. In fact, we've seen one iPhone come through our system about 1.5 years apart 3 times now.
How long have these been in the field?
The original prototype, Old Bessie, was 4 years ago. So the fully automated, about 2.5 years. So.
What gave you the idea to do this? I mean, why did you feel that this was an appropriate approach? I mean, the electronic waste problem is, I think, what we're collecting like 40% maybe of the mobile phones, and we go down from there. Well, actually, we don't even collect 40% of the mobile phones.
It's more like that. 20, 25, yeah.
But why is this something that we should all be concerned about in the room?
You know, eWaste is the fastest growing part of the waste stream, and it's some of it's pretty nasty stuff. Phones in particular they're not great, but they're not the worst of the offenders, like leaded glass and things like that, brominated plastics and so forth. But there's some nasty stuff in phones and tablets and so forth, and probably worse than just the way. Yeah, there's valuable stuff, but probably worse for me, worse than what it does in landfills and eventually to the water table and so forth, is all of the energy and resources in creating a new phone. So if you give a phone a second life, you stop creation of another phone. And if you do that to 2 million phones, then you make a big impact. You know, Coinstar If you're familiar with Coinstar machines, they've been out for 15, 20 years now. That's the company that recently acquired us, but they have gotten to a point where they're recycling about a third of the coins in the US annually. And it turns out your phone drawer at home, everybody has the kitchen drawer full of phones, fills up in terms of value and even volume at about the same rate as your coin jar, your pickle jar of coins. And so it's a similar, and we need to put these things in people's paths. Not a special trip, to the zoo, to the charity box, but in your normal path and incentivize you and pay you what they're worth.
How do I know what that is, though? If I'm walking in the mall, I see that thing, how do I possibly know what that's for?
That's a good question. As running marketing, I think about that all the time. We have big digital signage, and I think over time, nobody knew what a Coinstar machine is, and probably most people in the room that do any grocery shopping at all know what a Coinstar machine is. So part of it's just, over time, but it was a weird new concept when it came out, and it took a while for people to understand.
What can you tell us about who's placing items in these kiosks at this point?
Mobile phones in particular have a 95% plus penetration rate. So our customer is really everybody above 18. So it really is, the whole spectrum of people.
But is it young people? Is it people of all ages? I mean, I'm just trying to understand the demographic a little bit better.
Yeah, so our demographic is heavy 18 to 30, and then slightly less the next decade, and it sort of goes down over time. But that's probably a reflection of most of our kiosks are currently in malls.
Right.
We're moving into Walmarts and grocery, and so I think we'll see a little bit of we see a skew now that's heavier, younger than older. But I think if we do our job well, at some point, hopefully we get in, within 5 miles of 90% of the population, and it's sort of a cross-section of everybody.
Most of the carriers have a way of taking back their phones or tablets, their, in some cases, other mobile devices. Why is this something that is necessary?
A few reasons. I think one of the things that we will take back anything. The carriers don't necessarily take back all your old junk. We'll take anything. And also, the carriers generally, you do it in the trade-in, trade-up. Your 2-year contract expires, and we don't, none of that. It's whenever you want it, and it's also not store credit, it's cash. And so for a lot of people, I think that's a value proposition.
Now, I want to go back to the cash thing, because that's a, to be able to dispense cash. I mean, that thing is doing a lot of very sophisticated processes. It's handling a lot of sophisticated things. How did you figure out how to collect and dispense at the same time? In other words, what partnerships, you mentioned Coinstar a couple of times. When you launched this thing, was that the first company that you went to? That's part one. And part two is, what other partnerships have helped make this work?
Yeah, as an entrepreneur, my first thing that I do when I think about a new business is, who is the Elvis of this space, or the Elvises? And for me, it was Coinstar, a guy named Jens Molbach who started Coinstar, and I stalked him. I hunted him down until he would talk to me and tell me what he knew. And eventually he was an investor and was on my board, but he was a good partner and introduced us to Coinstar, the company he had left since then. And they had a really great partner. Not only did they provide us a little bit of cash, but all the experience, the operational things of running a kiosk network and so forth. The other big partnerships, I think, were the channel itself. The channel for used electronics is a big, giant, Wild Wild West, mom and pop to giant companies. It has traditionally been a lot of rules. It's maturing very quickly, a lot of standards coming in place. But figuring that channel out, what they cared about, what they didn't, it's the most starved channel you can imagine. It's a bottomless pit of as many used devices as you can collect. And the hard part about the whole process is getting consumers to participate. And so our value proposition, the assumptions we made was, if you made it really convenient in your weekly, monthly path, and made it incentivized, immediately incentivized, that it would meet the threshold for the masses to actually participate. I did surveys, and asked people, would you use before we did it, would you use a kiosk? If you did, and everybody, 30% said, I'd do it for charity, I wouldn't do it for cash. I would do it for the environment, but I wouldn't care about the cash. And in reality, everybody wants the incentive, and in real life you get, sort of, 1% spontaneous on charity and other things. So, the meeting the threshold, I guess my special insight into the kiosk concept was how lazy consumers can be. And this met my threshold, and apparently it meets a lot of other people's thresholds.
Is there an average amount of money that these?
Yeah, I'm part of a public company. We're not supposed to talk about that.
And
it's a bigger number than I think most people would assume.
Okay. We're going to come back to that Coinstar thing in a moment because you did get bought, but I want to go to Elaine for
Sure.
some sidebar questions first.
Hi, welcome.
I made it.
Great. So I wanted to ask you, because there are a lot of questions about this. Once you collect the device, take us through the end of life. Are you collecting the devices and then they're going to Asia or Africa? What's going on?
Yeah.
So there's two streams, and the percentage varies between 25 and 40% of one stream is the end of life. And so those get recycled, reclaimed. Mostly it's for the precious metals. There's platinum, gold, palladium, silver, copper, tin that can be reclaimed. It's about $1.25 worth of precious metals in each phone. And if you get that stuff back instead of mining it out of the ground, there's a lot of benefit. The other percentage, 75 to 60%, is bound for refurbishment and finds a second life as the device it started as. So it gets refurbished and used. Most of our flow is primarily in the U.S. In insurance and warranty replacements. They don't send you new phones, they send you nice used ones that have been refurbed if they can. And some ends up offshore, although less and less for us. Most of it is domestic.
Mm-hmm. Do you have certifications to manage that e-cycling part of it?
We do. We have ISO 14001, we have R2, we have an ISO 27001 that's around data, and so there wasn't a lot of standards in this business 5 years ago when we started, but it's matured very quickly, and we're happy about that.
Okay. Is anything else from you, Elaine? Or?
One of the questions is, how are the devices wiped so personal information isn't harvested?
Privacy, yeah.
Well, obviously the ones that go into smelting, the data, the bits go into the ether. The rest of them get wiped to, unlike hard drives in a PC, and there's a lot of standards there, DoD standards, where because it's a physical magnetic medium and you can degauss it and wipe it, phones and tablets have different memory structures in their flash memory. So those get wiped by the processes that wipe those, and that's a bunch of individual software for individual devices based on their architecture.
And you have a very secure way of transporting those devices, too.
Yeah, well, we didn't set out to do it, but the cash guys, the trucks, the guys with the guns, Loomis and Brinks and so forth, Loomis is a partner of ours, and they actually service the ATM side to put the money in, but we talked them into actually taking the phones out in the cash bags and taking them back to the truck with the guns. And so we only have one contractor that services at one time.
Okay. Anything else?
You know, it's great to recycle phones, and your service sounds really great. But wouldn't it be better if phones were designed to fit cradle-to-cradle principles, and companies would be responsible for collecting?
That would be better. We not holding out for that, and so in the meantime, we are solving it this way. And, God bless the guy that goes and tries to solve that.
Speaking of which, since you have been involved in so many entrepreneurial ventures, and you know that it's not just about being green, but it's about making money, and you just recently sold your company, what advice would you have for the entrepreneurs in this audience with a great green idea?
You know, I think the main thing is to separate the environmental stakeholder value proposition from the rest of it, and build your value proposition for the environment into the product, but don't make that the point for the other stakeholder. You know, most of us are living not just in the rest of the world, but even in the U.S. We're surviving, and we're in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We're down here: water, food, air, and so build your value proposition not save Mother Earth and save the planet, but because you'll get 10% of people to respond. You want 90%, the other people to respond, and if your value proposition is built in and not the entire point, don't lead with that if you don't have to. Lead with other things. It's faster, it's cooler, it's cheaper. And then when people buy it, the environmental value proposition is already there. So don't confuse the two.
All right. Well, I know we're out of time, so I'm going to bring Joel back up. Mark, thank you so much. Go see his device.